All right, this is going to be an awkward video for me to make because this whole week, I warn you, I'm not feeling so great. I'm having a major allergy attack from something, God knows what. But so I'm all sniffly, and it's going to be a bunch of stuff that people asked me to talk about. Like people keep asking. So I'm like, it's better to just like make videos, and here's my position for the record. But it's stuff that kind of pains me to talk about. And it kind of sucks having to talk about delicate stuff while not feeling great. But I feel like this stuff is important enough that I have to at least give it a shot. So if something in these videos triggers you, please don't freak out at me. I am so not in the mood. This stuff really bothers me. And I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna say a couple things at the beginning of this video just because they're happy. And I finally saw Mary Poppins Returns, and it was amazing. And I saw Lego Movie 2 with my friend's kids, and I know Chris Pratt is a bit of a dink, and he's fighting with Ellen Page right now over his church being kind of homophobic, but I still really like the movie. And like the best memory I've had in a really long time in a movie was we were at the end credits, and like when the lights come up and everybody starts filing out, the three of us were like, me and the younger sister. It was cool to see Lego Movie 2 with like an older brother and a younger sister. If you've seen Lego Movie 1, you know why. But they play that, the catchy song, "This side's gonna get stuck inside your head." And so me and the little girl were like dancing, and I'm just like, like grooving. And the little girl's like, "I'm moving and I don't know why." And the older brother, he's just on the verge of the teenage years, like the tween years kind of thing. And he was like, "We should go because there's no post-credit sequence and all that stuff." And like he was trying to be like Mr. Grown Up, and the two of I'm like, "But it's a dance party." And this is the moment I'll remember forever. You see the kid like warring between the two sides, and he actually like visibly shrugged and started dancing too. So like the three of us were just bopping away while everybody else was funneling out, and it was fantastic. It was a really good moment. But the movie is very smart on its own merits. Thanks, Loki. Loki likes it too, even though he wasn't there. And I'm not going to do a review because unless something is extremely controversial, reviews don't do great. So I'm not going to bother. I'll tell the patrons a more in-depth review. That's what I'll do. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. I wasn't going to do that there, but anyway, I'll do it at the end of the video as well. People seem to generally prefer it at the end of the video, so I'm going to start moving that way. But yes, I am stalling because I don't want to talk about this stuff. Two people that I have crossed paths with at some point have been charged with fairly serious stuff. One is, of course, Mercedes Carrera, who I appeared on the David Pakman show as a guest, and Mercedes was the other guest. And for some odd reason, people think that means I should respond to the fact that she was charged with sexual assault of a minor. I don't have anything to add about this. I can give my opinions as a layperson who has read about the case, but I have no direct knowledge. I exchanged some tweets with Mercedes. I had a fun time doing the David Pakman show with Mercedes. I don't know very much about her as a person. She's well educated. She's extremely smart. She has very strong feelings about political correctness. I don't share all of them. I do think, and this is all I will say about this. Well, I should say off the bat, if the charges are true, it is abhorrent, obviously. And I think that the people responsible, if she did it, then she and her husband should be punished to the full extent of the law. There's no excuse for abusing a child. Now, the mitigating factor here, first of all, I do think it's innocent until proven guilty. That's the way our justice system works. And I do think there is something of a rush to judgment on this case, because she is in adult entertainment. She's a porn star. And because she was, a lot of the articles I've seen link her to Gamergate. Because she was pro Gamergate, I think there's a big rush to judgment, and I don't think that's fair. Somebody having an opinion on stuff involving video games and not liking political correctness and hating feminism and all that stuff doesn't mean you're a child molester. That's absurd and ridiculous, and I don't like that. I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not she is actually guilty of this. And I do think it is sensationally bad journalism to link the two things, because you guys know how I feel about Gamergate. I feel like Gamergate was it was blown out of proportion, this perception that it caused horrible harm to women in gaming. I don't think it's even in the top 10 of things that are harming women in gaming right now. I was a target of both Gamergate and anti-Gamergate. People said some nasty things about me. Anti-Gamergate blackballed me from the games industry. The Gamergate side, I don't want to say they enabled some trolls to do some really, really nasty things to me. But some trolls did take cracks at me. They did their best. I'm still here. I don't know why everybody doesn't have this response, because all it was words. Granted, I'm pretty tough, but when you're in the media of any kind, you have to be tough. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think creative people should have to be tanks, because a lot of them are, priests and wizards, and they don't have many hit points. Sorry, clerics, it's the Dungeons and Dragons. Clerics and mages. Wizard has a charge term now. But I don't think creative people should have to be so tough. I'm fortunate that I am pretty tough. And so I can say, as somebody who took it whole hog from both sides, the Gamergate side accused me of inflating my review scores and lying about various people, which was not true. And members of the anti-Gamergate side accused me of being an abusive boss and not paying my contractors, which was also not true. So I took a bunch of false accusations from both sides, which is why I tend to stop, look and listen when somebody ties anything to do with the whole Gamergate controversy to bad acts in real life. There were plenty of anti-types that behaved badly. There were plenty of pro-Gamergate types that behaved badly. There's neither side really had a moral high ground, but I also don't believe that either side is exclusively filled with terrible people who just hate women or hate freedom. That silly black or white thinking, I think, is immature and possibly actually mentally ill. And I do not subscribe to this idea that nuance makes you a facilitator of bad behavior. I am a student of history, and one of the things I have learned is that history is complicated, and anything involving people is complicated. And, I'm not going to play that game. So the antis are going to continue to blacklist me, and some of those pro-Gamergaters are going to continue to think I'm just the devil incarnate because I'm a feminist. There's nothing I can do about that except not drink the Kool-Aid from either side. And I do think that, even though I admit when I first read the story about Mercedes Carrera, I was like, oh, this looks really bad. I was initially inclined to believe the accusations. But then I saw another story, and unfortunately I can't find it now. Someone linked me to it, so I cannot verify the source. I don't know how accurate it is, how reliable it is, but apparently Mercedes Carrera is saying that this is connected. Apparently the person, and I could be completely wrong about this, I don't know. Like I said, I can't find the article again. But apparently the person she is accused of abusing is her own daughter, and that there is a nasty custody thing connected to this, and she is claiming her ex-husband is doing this because he doesn't like her lifestyle, and she's being lied about. And I'm like, all right. Sadly, I have seen that happen, both in very acrimonious divorces and with people of certain religious persuasions. And I'm not saying that everyone who is religious believes this way. I have some wonderful friends who are Christian who would never do this to another human being. But I have seen, I knew a particular woman who owned her own website. She did fetish videos. I won't say her name so that nobody goes after her. But she had attended a Jesuit college, and some former classmates of hers got extremely malicious on religious grounds. So I have seen it happen. There's still a ridiculous amount of stigma against people in sex work. So it is possible. And that's why I'm keeping an open mind. There will be a trial. If they are found guilty at trial, that is because they were found guilty beyond reasonable doubt by a jury of their peers. I will accept the verdict. Now, the second one is, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It was sort of a run-on joke on the convention circuit that nobody knew how to pronounce this voice actor's name. I don't know if it's the Americanized Vic Mignogna, or the way I was taught to pronounce Mignogna. That's the way I was taught. And it's Mike Mignola, the comic book artist. So that's the way so I'm just going to say Vic, because the first time I was exposed to this particular voice actor was at a convention. I had no idea who he was because I prefer to watch my anime with subtitles, not English dubs. And I was doing a panel, and Vic had the panel room after me. And there were a whole bunch of 15-year-old girls who were there. They were just sitting in my panel so they could be there early for Vic's panel. And the reason I keep saying Vic is they were there for Vic. He was on a first name basis. This guy was like a one-man boy band with these teenagers. And I'm like, what? So I went and looked him up. And he does have an extensive video game track record, anime track record. The guy's apparently a great chaser in voice acting, which means he doesn't need multiple takes. He just runs it, and he chases the script, the lip sync. Apparently that's why he's so in demand. He's very good at a particular style of voice work that is really good with anime, because you got to do it fast and you got to do a lot of it. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is he has also been accused of inappropriate conduct with minors. I will not go into more than that, but there have been quite a few allegations. That's putting it lightly. You can look it up if you want. I don't want to dwell on it, because I admit this one makes me sick because I saw it. I didn't see anything that would, I think, be considered criminal, but I did see something and I did say something, and I can confirm that Now, they're saying that a lot of conventions and convention runners and people were bullied by him, were threatened with things, and that's why they covered it up. But I did mention it to people and got the, oh, that's just Vic. Now, what did I see? On multiple occasions, I saw him skip out of conventions, just not show up on the last day. That alone is, you're a shitty guest, but that's not a bad thing. But one time I happened to be at a convention, and I don't want to be wrong about which one it was, so I'm not going to name names. But instead of him being at his booth, I went across the street to get food and saw him gallivanting about town with at least 5 or 6 underage girls. He skipped out on the convention, and grown-ass man was hanging out with teenagers on work time. And I thought that was bizarre. I don't, I thought that was bizarre. And so I said something. And what I was basically told is, oh yeah, he does that all the time. And I said, well, why do you keep bringing him back as a guest? Well, because he brings in money when he is here. He brings people in the door. This is why this is why I was not terribly successful as a con runner, because to me, that would bother me too much to have someone back. This is a really tricky thing when you're running conventions, because there's only so much you can do. You do not have any direct evidence of anything. Hanging out with teenagers is not criminal, but there was just something about it that was too familiar. The whole experience, every time I saw him around young women, it just struck me as inappropriate. But that sort of street corner moment, and it was years ago. I'm not talking recent. I'm talking years ago. This is going on for a long time. That street corner moment really struck me as inappropriate. Most people who are adults, there's this line you don't cross with minors, especially minors of the opposite sex. And, you don't want people, and I'm even sometimes very, very cautious about young women because of some, I used to do LGBTQ advocacy back in the day, and some of these young women who are, figuring out their sexuality, they developed, they don't have healthy boundaries because there's a lot of abuse at home. Or back in the day, like in the 90s, kids were thrown out of their house for being gay. So they didn't have healthy boundaries, and they got, they formed an unhealthy attachment to older people who seemed to understand them and accept them. And it wasn't just that, you'd get in trouble, because back then the fear of accusation wasn't as extreme. The Catholic Church scandal hadn't happened yet. But still, you didn't want the kid to feel crushed, pardon the pun, when they're unrequited crush. It was better to sort of keep a healthy distance than to have them get too close. And because a lot of these kids were suicidal, a lot of them were in extremely precarious mental states, like emotional states. You had to really respect that. And you had to recognize that they were people, and they were not old enough to recognize. And a lot of them had been in such bad situations, they didn't know the difference between a healthy relationship and an unhealthy one. It was your job as the older person to teach them those healthy boundaries, to give them the example of those healthy boundaries. And that's why when I see, a grown-ass man gallivanting around with this gaggle of teenagers, and I don't know how old they are for sure, they could have been 17 years old. Anime conventions back in the day used to be very much teenage. It was like 40 plus or teenagers, right? And so they looked very young. They read to me as very young. They certainly read to me as underage. And it wasn't cool. So that one, I'm not, that's not prejudging, and I'm not accusing him of any crimes. I'm just here to say I saw with my own eyes, like I said, nothing that leads, nothing that ranked as criminal, but it certainly appeared to me as inappropriate and certainly unprofessional. When it's 2:00 on a Sunday and your booth is still empty and you were scheduled to appear that day, that's not cool. That's not respectful to your colleagues that bothered to show up. And it's not respectful to the convention that paid your way and paid you a guarantee to be there. That is not cool. So, yeah, the guy, people are saying witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. A witch hunt means there's absolutely no validity to the charges. That's not so in this case. I'm not saying I can prove he assaulted anyone, and that's what some people are claiming. That's up to them to provide evidence. I can just say, and some people accused him of homophobia. There was one thing that I saw when they said that he wouldn't sign things that shipped certain characters. I saw something that kind of maybe would have approached that, but I'm not sure. So in the interest of fairness, I'm not going to get into that. I'm only going to focus on the behavior I saw that was absolutely, I believe, in the realm of inappropriate. So that's what I can offer on that one. For whatever it matters, like I said, this is not a crime, but I do think that his colleagues who have a better work ethic deserve better. And the guy's good at what he does, but there's a lot of people out there that are good at what they do. And I don't think it's fair that someone who apparently does not appreciate, how fortunate he has been in terms of casting. He's had a really good career as a voice actor. I feel very strongly about work ethics, and when you commit to a convention, you commit to the convention. You don't just not show up. You don't just bail on programming. You don't, without a reason. Like, you don't just, I'm too important for this or whatever reason. If they book you, people expect you to be there. And, I've had people disappointed that they didn't get to meet me because I was in a panel and they came by my booth, and it's like, I'm like, who am I? I was on Canadian TV. Okay, I was on G4. Okay, I was on G4 in the States, but still, like, that is not major celebrity status, and people were still disappointed. And it's like, you don't know, right? Like, that moment, like, that somebody that matters to someone was nice to them, that can matter a whole lot to someone. And even that alone, I think if you're not there, it's really unprofessional. But the inappropriateness with minors, yeah, I saw that. And people can say there's nuance, it could be misread. Sure, I'll give you that. I am just presenting this because this is what I saw with my own eyes. So unlike the, Mercedes Carrera thing where, okay, I talked to Mercedes once, I exchanged some tweets with her, but I have no direct knowledge of anything that was going on with this. I didn't even know she had a kid, or I forgot. The Vic, we used to call him Vic Menomina because nobody could pronounce his name. And I know that's really bad, and I apologize to Italians, but that it was just frustration that nobody really knew how to pronounce his name because nobody said his full name. It was always just Vic. That I did see, and I was not okay with it. And I did say something because you know what? If I came here and I told you guys that, yeah, I said something and I didn't report it to somebody, you'd have every right to be pissed at me because it is minors involved. So I want to be really clear. I did say something to the convention organizers, and I can confirm that the attitude at the time was, that's just Vic. That's what he does. So I do think that various con runners do share some responsibility in the inappropriate behavior because they never took it up with him. They brushed off people who reported it. And obviously a lot of young women had, I don't know if it was men and women, I just saw the women, had some bad experiences with him. So for what it's worth, there you go. I'm going to wrap now. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Because this stuff's unpleasant to talk about. So it'd be nice to make a little bit of money. All right. Thanks for watching.